Hello, everybody. How are we doing? Are we ready and ready to go for the Netherlands Grand Prix? I'm just having some small technical difficulties in that I can't seem to get my stream to load itself. But, we got time. We got, 20 minutes or so until the Grand Prix starts. So I'm hoping they'll be able to see at least something by then. Oh, there we go. There we go. We're ready. I can see a man dancing in orange. It's the Netherlands Grand Prix guaranteed. Hello, Jamie, mate. How are you doing? Hello, Mallory, as well. We've got the whole crew together. Whole team's here. But, oh my God. Why, when you glance across to the Netherlands Grand Prix, is it always just people head to toe in orange, flares going, just dancing around like mad? We're 20 minutes away from the Grand Prix starting. There's one lady losing her mind in the middle of the crowd, and I'm here for it. I'm absolutely loving it. Some Dutch techno going on already. Hello, Sally, as well. God, we really have got everybody in here, haven't we? Let's delve straight into it, shall we? Talk about the Netherlands Grand Prix is taking part at the Zandvoort circuit. I'm interested, actually, in what you guys think in terms of this circuit, because I've talked to a few people over the course of this weekend, and it seems very divisive. It seems like people either absolutely love it and think it's one of the best circuits available on the calendar just because of how technical it is, how difficult it is for the drivers to really nail a lap, and it properly separates those guys that are right on the edge and are able to really get that lap going. Or I've heard people absolutely hate it because it's so narrow, because it's so precise in the movements, and if you go off the racing line even slightly, it costs you too much, and therefore your overtaking opportunities are so limited. I've heard people swing both ways when it comes to the Dutch Grand Prix, but I'm hoping for a little bit of overtaking opportunities. Oh, Liam Lawson. Little bit of an interview. The first Grand Prix. Obviously, it's looking dry at this moment in time. We were a little bit worried that there might be rain. When I did my previews, I think they said there was a 30% chance of rain come Sunday, but it's just about holding out by the looks of things. Maybe a little bit of a drizzle towards the middle of the Grand Prix. Spice it up a little bit. That would be very interesting to see, wouldn't it? But yeah, Liam Lawson taking part in his first Grand Prix this weekend. Interesting to see what he can actually achieve. I think just, being clean, making sure that he kind of builds into the car, keeps himself nice and tidy. To be honest with you, I could see there being a couple of DNFs or not, or so, in this one, because we've seen a few drivers in the wall over the course of the weekend already. What we've seen, Piastri, Ricciardo, Leclerc, Joe. Who else was in the wall yesterday? We've seen a lot of drivers just all over. Kevin Magnussen. We've seen a lot of drivers find the barriers over the course of the weekend so far. So I feel like we could see another one of those kind of incidents and possibly a driver in the barriers at some point over the course of the weekend. And therefore, Liam Lawson keeps it clean, keeps it nice and tidy. Just make sure he gets to the end of the Grand Prix. Maybe could put in, I'm not expecting a points performance, but a solid P15, P16, something like that, just to get your Formula One career going. Should we talk about predictions whilst we're delving into the possibilities of Liam Lawson? Other predictions, first place, is there anyone other than Max Verstappen that we're thinking about? Maybe a Lando Norris mixed in there? Oh, Jamie, I like the technical side of the race, but I dislike the lack of overtakes. Overtakes make the racing more fun. That's very true. It feels like one of those tracks that are it's very qualifying heavy, almost similar to a Monaco. I don't want to bracket it in the same way as Monaco, though, because I do think it is much more exciting than the Monaco Grand Prix, but maybe has too much emphasis on the ability to qualify, and if you can qualify well. What is happening? We've gone from Dutch techno. There is now a man with a violin standing in front of just like 20 women in multicolored dresses. I'm not sure what's really going on. The Dutch Grand Prix, it's like they're going for the Miami approach, where it's like if we just throw stuff at people, like we just throw entertainment towards people, they'll accept it. And now they're just throwing an orchestra at people rather than sort of cringe driver introductions. An orchestra in the wind. They don't seem very happy. They do not seem very happy at all. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. Can we see anyone other than Max Verstappen winning this race? Obviously, it would be his 9th consecutive win this season. His 13th win of the season. No, 12th win of the season? No, he got his 11th win of the season. This is the 13th race of the season. His 11th win of the season in 13 races was what I was thinking. Oh, that's pretty cool. They got the flags going with the Dutch flag. Ah, okay. Winner Lando, Max second, Hamilton third. Did you watch qualifying yesterday? Hamilton is way out of the running, in my opinion, starting from 13th place. It's going to be a long afternoon for Lewis. I think just getting past the Alpine of Gasly is going to be tricky enough. Maybe if he can get in front of him off the start. But then you've got to get past Williams's. Williams's are so difficult to get past. Like, we've seen it with Alex Albon. Like, he just puts the wall up. Think back to Canada. Just, he puts the wall of Williams up, and that's it. You're just sitting behind Alex Albon for the rest of the race. Maybe Logan Sargent can do something similar. Unless there's a DNF, I don't see it. Yeah, me too. I think what we have on our hands is a Max Verstappen first place. That's fine. We can accept that. That's okay. We have a Lando Norris second place. I do think that the McLaren car is really competitive this weekend, just in terms of the first sector in particular. It's got so much speed through those medium speed corners. And then the Red Bull does come into its own kind of second, third sector in particular. Like, it's just the availability that they've got for downforce at Red Bull is unreal. Like, it just feels like every single corner they're able to stick to like glue. And then they also have a really good straight line speed as well. Like, don't get me wrong, they're not the fastest in a straight line speed, but they're pretty much there. And with the DRS advantage that they seem to have found too, like, they do just make it look so easy at Red Bull this season. Then we've got the fact that I think Lando Norris will slot in second place. I think he'll have more than enough. But then behind that, Russell, Albon, Alonso, genuinely could go any which way between those. Even Carlos Sainz, if the Ferrari, I'm not holding out too much hope for the Ferrari, to be honest with you, but if the Ferrari turns up today and maybe has a little bit better tyre degradation than I'm expecting, maybe Sainz is in that mix. Perez is just behind that. Like, the battle for third place is very, very competitive today. Because I think Russell is really going to struggle in terms of race pace. He was very quick yesterday, but I think Russell is running a slightly higher downforce setup because he's always been quicker than Lewis Hamilton in the second sector, which is all about downforce. Whereas Hamilton seemed to have the edge over Russell, especially Friday in the first and third sector. So I think Russell's running a slightly higher downforce setup. And that means that Russell, therefore, is going to be a lot slower today and maybe is going to be open to a couple of overtakes from behind, as long as Alex Albon can get the straight line speed of that Williams car. Basically, what Albon needs to do is do his best to hold on to the back of George Russell as much as possible through that second sector. And then through the third sector, he can really come alive. The Williams really kicks into gear, and it's just whether or not they can get down towards turn one. And Alex Albon's got enough straight line speed advantage, which I'm expecting he probably will have in that Williams car. Then there's Fernando Alonso, who I think will have a really good race pace because of the upgrades that they've done on their floor. The downforce is a lot better in that Aston Martin car, and I think he's going to have the strategic advantage. So we've got George Russell, who's got the track position advantage. We've then got Alex Albon, who I think has the better package for this weekend and has the straight line speed advantage. And then we've got Fernando Alonso, who I think has the best race package. Like, that battle for third place is ridiculous. And then if you think Sergio Perez as well is going to be there, in and amongst the mix, if he can get in front of Carlos Sainz, that third place battle is going to be crazy. In terms of best drive and best team, difficult to look past Williams this weekend. Alex Albon starting from 4th place. If he can finish anywhere close to 4th, that is an insane amount of points going Williams' direction. You got to remember they're currently on the same points in the constructor standings as Haas. Like, Haas got 11 points. Williams got 11 points. Williams could double their points today if if Alex Albon gets like a podium. They could absolutely fly ahead of the rest of the competition and completely separate themselves from that bottom 3. Like, I normally talk about these guys as the bottom 4. Williams could easily jump and make it a bottom 3 and then maybe get themselves within contention of catching Alpine. I think that would be insane with 9 races left to go this season, considering Alpine have been pretty quick over the course of the season. Not as quick as they've wanted to be, but they've definitely been midfieldy quick. Williams have just turned up something a little bit special. Is having high downforce good for a track with high deg? That is very true. High downforce and high deg. It will cost the tyres a little bit just because with higher downforce, you're pressing into the track a little bit more, obviously. And it does kind of heat up the rubber a little bit better. That's why you see those guys, when they're heating up their tires, kind of weaving and doing like heavy braking. So you're trying to get the temperature through the brakes to heat up the tires as well. There's not like an insane amount of high braking points. You're sort of talking turn 1, turn 3 is like a medium braking point. You know, you're not super heavy on the brakes. Not like Monza next weekend, for instance, where you're going absolutely full pelt down straight after straight after straight, and then followed by chicane where you've got to come to almost a stop every single time you want to go through a corner at Monza. There's a lot more flow through this track in particular. So it'd be interesting to see how that balances out, as I said, between those kind of 3 drivers in 3rd, 4th, 5th. I think is a really big battle. Sergio Perez in there. Charles Leclerc could add in there. Oscar Piastri might even battle for a podium today if he can hook up a little bit more of a lap. Time for podcast episode number 2. The podcast is coming. It's coming. Yeah, I definitely need to get into more of a rhythm. I think luckily my job is now changing. I think that was the main thing. My job was it was so difficult to judge week by week because the amount of work that I'd have to do one week would be like almost none, and then the next week would just be ridiculous. Whereas now, hopefully, I'm getting a bit more of a new subtle change to that where I can, be a bit more consistent with what I'm doing. How are we all doing? Zach, hello, I'm new. Well, Zach, welcome. Thank you for joining. Have you got any predictions for us? Throw a 1st, 2nd, 3rd before I quickly move on to the Drivers and Constructors Championships. Because, yeah, that's where I think we're at, to be honest with you. 1st, 2nd, 3rd. I'm going to go Max. Going to go Lando. 3rd place, really tricky to call. Albon. I'll go Albon for the banter. Best drive, easily Alex Albon over the course of this weekend. Although someone from the back might make their way through. That could go to Lewis Hamilton if he manages to do something special. He entertains the crowd. Weather forecast is looking dry at the moment, although it's a little bit grey out there. Apparently it's supposed to stay dry. When I was doing my preview and predictions show, the rain was at 30%. It's gone up a little bit. It's at 40% when I last checked the weather app of choice. So the weather might hold out, but that would be a complete spanner in the works. It would definitely change up. Oh, there might be a little bit of rain, they're saying. Possibly a tiny little bit of rain coming our way. And then the struggle, difficult to look past Charles Leclerc, difficult to look past Haas, difficult to look past Alfa Romeo. Basically, if you've got a Ferrari power unit, might as well not bother taking part. I think it's unlikely that any of the Ferrari cars will do anything that spectacular today. I think they're just kind of there to be taking part, unfortunately, for Ferrari, Haas, and Alfa Romeo. AlphaTauri is an interesting one in terms of Yuki Tsunoda not being anywhere near as good yesterday as I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to get into the top 10. But then again, it's so hard, right? Because that top 10 is so competitive. But there we are. Had to subscribe. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it. And then moving on, let's talk about the championship board, because actually, where's the driver's standings? There he is. It's actually quite competitive. I think obviously Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez are kind of on a little bit of an island of their own right now. Sergio Perez 40 points ahead of Fernando Alonso. But then you look back from that, and it's super, super competitive. You're looking at Alonso and Hamilton separated by just a point. Alonso, though, looking much, much better this weekend in terms of qualifying yesterday and also going into the race. I think Alonso might be on for a podium just because of how good the race pace of the Aston Martin car looked on the Friday. If it does stay dry, I think they're in for a fairly decent afternoon. Actually, if it's wet, I think they're probably in for an even better race. So Fernando Alonso probably hoping for a little dabble of rain. Lewis Hamilton starting from 13th place is really going to struggle to make up positions, I think, because that Mercedes car just lacks straight line speed. And also he is running a slightly lower downforce setup than George Russell, I think. So we'll have a little bit more going in towards turn 1 than George Russell, but I still think we'll struggle. In particular, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Carlos Sainz, then in a little group with each other in the 90s. Charles Leclerc and George Russell both looking to get into the 100 club. Carlos Sainz could also get into the 100 club with a pretty decent drive this afternoon. Needs to break into that kind of top 5 if he's able to do so. Oh, what have I done here? Oh, I've done that. But yeah, George Russell, Charles Leclerc. It's tricky. I think George Russell will probably outscore Charles Leclerc today and probably move in front of him. But then Charles Leclerc, over the course of the season, I want to say has probably had the better overall season so far. So, I don't know. It's difficult to separate those two. They've both had their ups and downs of Charles Leclerc and George Russell, and that's why they're on the same amount of points, because it is quite literally difficult to separate those two. Carlos Sainz, 92, as I said, and then we jump to Lando Norris, who's kind of found himself in a nice little separate 8th place. He'll be hoping actually to make up place on Carlos Sainz. If Lando Norris can break into the top, he's already done incredibly well to break into the top 8 and get in front of Lance Stroll. But if he can break into like the big teams there and jump up a little bit further, that'd be very impressive from Lando. Lance Stroll starting from 11th place, trying to break back into that top 8. Look at the gap though between Stroll and Alonso. It's just ever widening at this point, isn't it? And then Ocon, Piastri, and Gasly. Piastri will be looking to jump in front of the Alpine because neither of the Alpine drivers looking very competitive this weekend. They find themselves in a really strange no man's land in the Constructors' Championship and on track this weekend as well. So Oscar Piastri, I'm expecting to jump up into the top half of the table by the end of this Grand Prix if all goes well for him. Then you've got Alex Albon. He really is just the wild card amongst this. He's 11 points off Pierre Gasly. And Pierre Gasly, who I thought, in my head, Pierre Gasly had an all-right season so far. I think if Alex Albon jumps in front of him in the Drivers' Championship, you have to start squinting your eyes and thinking, has it really gone that well for Pierre Gasly so far if Alex Albon can catch him within a Grand Prix? I know it's a lot of points if Alex Albon's able to get a podium and get like 15 points or even 12 points for finishing where he starts. I think that would be very, very impressive for Alex Albon and tricky to do. But if he's able to do it and jumps in front of Pierre Gasly, that is not good for the Frenchman. And then it's kind of those drivers that I don't think are really going to be in and amongst it. Hulkenberg, Bottas, Joe, Magnussen down there. Tsunoda is a weird one. I thought Tsunoda would be okay this weekend. I mean, he's starting like in and amongst it. 14th place, Yuki Tsunoda. Maybe he'll be able to get another 11th place on the board, but just can't see Tsunoda picking up points, unfortunately, in that AlphaTauri. Logan Sargent is an interesting one. The opportunity to get his first points of the season, starting in 10th place. His first Q3 of the entire year. They had to piece his car back together again, though, after a spin in turn 2. Whether he'll be able to carry that pace through, he just doesn't fill me with hope. I know that Oscar Piastri is a rookie as well, but Logan Sargent just feels like a slightly different type of rookie. You know what I mean? Maybe it is that year as a test driver that really does put you in good stead just because you're in and around Formula 1 all the time. Not sure. And then Nick de Vries, in 20th place still. Daniel Ricciardo wasn't able to get a 12th place or higher to dislodge Nick De Vries from the top 20. Let's see if Liam Lawson can do it. He needs a 12th place finish, which was the highest Nick De Vries managed in his 10 races in Formula 1. Although, obviously, got the points with Williams last year, so that does go down on the record. So he won't go down as a Formula 1 driver that never picked up any points, luckily for Nick De Vries, because he did it on his debut with Williams in 2022. Liam Lawson, though, is he going to be able to get that 12th place? I don't think so. It's going to be very difficult for him to get that 12th place finish. I would be happy with Liam Lawson just having a nice, clean race. Finishing the race, I think, is all Liam Lawson really needs to do. Max looks unstoppable, but he will probably DNF after the championship is sewn up. I mean, that would be... At least we'd have a different winner, if not, a battle for the championship. Considered championship sewn up already. I think Verstappen can get it in Japan again. I think it's Japan the earliest time that he can pick up the championship, which was the same place he won the championship last year after that really weird final corner incident with Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, and then Charles Leclerc got a penalty, handed Max the title. It was all very strange. But yeah, Japan would be the earliest I think Max Verstappen can sew up the title in its entirety. And we're literally a minute away, so I'll very quickly pop up the Constructors' Championship. Not too much that I think is going to change here, to be honest with you. Ferrari looking much slower than Aston Martin. That's the only real battle that we've got there. Williams will remain in front of Haas, and I'm sure will elongate their lead a touch or possibly even a lot, depending on how Alex Albon does this afternoon. Haas, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, I can't see any of those picking up any points, so it's going to stay pretty similar as it is. I think the only team that might be able to swap positions is Ferrari. If both Aston Martins like DNF or something, that's literally it, isn't it? There's not a lot of opportunity for that. But here we go then, a minute away from the start of the Netherlands Grand Prix. How are we all feeling? Oh, it's just so nice to be back, isn't it? I know the summer break is necessary and the summer shutdown is lovely for the guys at the factory. But for us, it really does beg the question of, what on earth do I do with my weekend? Wow, that is a terrible picture of Liam Lawson that they have found. Obviously, they had to just quickly cut that out as quickly as they possibly could. There's someone at the Formula 1 running down to Liam Lawson, just taking a picture as quickly as they possibly could, and then on Photoshop, cut that out. Cut that out, yep. Put that in. Considering stopping watching Formula 1 and unsubscribing from the F1 TV app, Max winning all the time. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things. We're going through a little generational turn. You do just end up with these every now and then, don't you? If you think back to Sebastian Vettel kind of only really battled for his titles the first year and the last year. The two in the middle, ridiculously dominant, I would say, from Sebastian Vettel. Lewis Hamilton was the worst one, which is ages. Lewis Hamilton winning over and over and over and over again. Whereas I feel like generally, when you go through these cycles, they only really last 2 to 3 years. So Max Verstappen is on this is peak Max Verstappen for me. And then I think next year will be a lot more competitive. Max might still win the championship next year, but I think it will be a lot more competitive. And then the year after that, I think will be super competitive. I think 2025 going into 2026, everyone will have kind of got these regulations down. And we're seeing with these regulations as they are, the ability to swap positions and drivers jumping up and down. McLaren were absolutely dead and buried earlier on in the season. Now they look absolutely phenomenal. The ability to jump up and be part of that and be competitive is there. And therefore, I think it will be very, very close in 2025. And then 2026 is just a big roll of the dice, isn't it? Someone has got to change. Oh, Fernando Alonso. Ooh. A little bit of rain. Wow. I think the thing is, right, there might not even be rain, But just the fact that there is a threat of rain, the fact that the teams have got to be a little bit wary of the rain coming and how it's going to adapt and how it's going to affect the drivers this weekend, this is going to be very interesting as we start the formation lap. That is very true. Max Verstappen under quite a bit of pressure. I feel like he's okay with pressure as Max Verstappen. I didn't think we'd see the soft compound tyre in the race, to be honest with you. I thought we'd see maybe a two-stop strategy, but it would be like medium, hard. But a lot of drivers starting on the soft, or everyone's starting on the soft compound tyre, apart from Nico Hülkenberg. Literally everybody starting on the soft compound tyre. Very interesting, actually. Wonder if they'll go, but the problem is you kind of want the soft tyre at the end. So everyone's just going to do the same strategy, right? Just soft, medium, soft. Sold out attendance. Wow. 305,000 people. You can understand why they decided 3 years ago to be like, let's bring the Dutch Grand Prix back. Now that we've got Max Verstappen, this absolutely sensational Dutch talent. A Lawson crash and a safety car incoming. Oh, Tom. Scathing. I don't know. I feel like Lawson will do all right. He'll do all right. Does need to keep it clean. Just keep it clean. That is very true, actually. The race starts literally right now, Nathan. It's gonna start within the next minute. We're just waiting for the final cars to come around the turn 14 bend and take their position. Liam Lawson is on the precipice of coming down the pit straight. Under pressure to be the first. Always with Red Bull. He's got cheat codes. Yes. Here we go then. Right, Alex, get this right. Lando, get this right. That's all I want. The green flag is waved. The lights are turning on. And we're out then. Come on then. Let's get a good little run down towards turn 1. Lando Norris comes across to try and fight off George Russell. Alex Albon also with a really nice line through turn 1. And Alex Albon might be able to get the upper hand on George Russell. Not this time around. The Ferrari of Carlos Sainz right beside Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso going for a little dive bomb at turn 3 and takes the position from Alex Albon and George Russell. That is absolutely sensational from Fernando Alonso as he gets up into the podium positions. The raindrops coming down, though. Alex Albon trying to get temperature in that Williams car as the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz is coming around the outside. And I think Albon's going to struggle to keep him behind. He does. Albon's going to drop down a position. No, fights back, does Alex Albon. And gets the position back from Carlos Sainz. And Sergio Perez waiting to pounce on the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. They are all swapping positions all over the place. Carlos Sainz just about closes the door on Sergio Perez. So Fernando Alonso, the big mover from 5th up into 3rd place, but we're still Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Russell, Albon, our top 5. And then it's all, there is a lot of rain coming down now. The threat of rain has come true, and I think that's going to be a lot of drivers coming in for tyres. Oscar Piastri wiggling and squirming all over the place. Are they going to be able to get round for the intermediate tyres? No. Max Verstappen has continued on this lap. It's dry in the first sector. Sergio Perez is the man for intermediate tyres first. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic to wait for. Going to have a little bit of traffic But I mean, all the guys at the back rolling the dice. Charles Leclerc coming in for a pit stop too. Oh, and they haven't got the tyres ready at Ferrari. Oh. I think the problem that McLaren have got is they've got no pace when it came to the wet weather running. So they're going to really struggle, I think. And Fernando Alonso has taken that opportunity to get past Lando Norris and jumps up into second place. Verstappen on the radio. If you can live with it, stay out, was what he was told. But I think he's going to come in this lap. A lot of people struggling in that final sector. Let's show me Sergio Perez's times. Oof. Wow, Sergio Perez is going to really launch himself into contention here by pitting early for Red Bull. But is the rain stopping? And Lando Norris decides not to go in, and so does George Russell. So Norris and Russell's going to go for it. Russell is going to lead this Grand Prix as they go through turn one, side by side, and Russell's going to take the lead as Max Verstappen's dropped into the pit lane. Where's Max Verstappen going to come out? Wow. Sergio Perez up into 5th place. Max Verstappen all the way down in 13th. So Sergio Perez jumping in for those intermediate tyres at literally the perfect time. And Lando Norris and Sergio Perez is up into 2nd place already. And he's going to go into the lead. Sergio Perez takes the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix. It's the Red Bull taking the lead, and it's not the Red Bull you'd have expected. Wow. Sergio Perez is flying on those intermediate tyres. Everybody that stayed out for the softs and mediums has absolutely thrown it. But I think there might be... Oh my goodness me. Max Verstappen now thundering through as quickly as he possibly can. The intermediate tyres displacing a lot of that water. And the team's open. Oh, and that's Charles Leclerc through the gravel. Manages to hold on to it, Charles Leclerc, but through the gravel on the intermediate tyres. And Fernando Alonso actually has missed out quite a bit too, as he's now behind Charles Leclerc. Pierre Gasly has been the huge benefit of this. Verstappen now on the back of Pierre Gasly, both of them on the intermediate tyre though, and everybody who was on the soft I think is now committing and coming in. Lando Norris coming in for McLaren now and is going to be absolutely nowhere. So we now have Perez. Zhou Guanyu is 2nd in this, Pierre Gasly in 3rd. Max Verstappen all over the back of the Alpine, though, and Charles Leclerc now finds himself in 5th place. Fernando Alonso is 6th. George Russell stayed out for Mercedes in 7th place. Carlos Sainz in 8th. Yuki Tsunoda 9th. Alex Albon has also stayed out and is in 10th place. Everybody holding on to those soft compound tyres and hoping that they can just brave this stint of rain. It's really wet, though, out there. Wow. Well, that has completely thrown a spanner in the works. Wow, Lewis Hamilton is in the middle of chaos right now. Actually, where is Liam Lawson? Liam Lawson survived all of that? All of that absolute chaos? Fernando Alonso just jumps through at turn 1. Sorry, at turn 3. Really, really impressive. Oh my goodness me. That Ferrari pit stop, man. Charles Leclerc came in. The intermediate tyres weren't even out of the garage. Oh, Yuki Tsunoda as well. Same thing at AlphaTauri. They just didn't have the intermediate tyres actually ready to go. God, there was so much spray, actually. Although Fernando Alonso looking really, really good, even with the damp track and the slick tyres. Lando Norris now taking 12th place off Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri yet to have come in. Staying on the soft compound tyre is Oscar Piastri. So is Alex Albon. But they are now miles off the pace. Verstappen all over the back of Pierre Gasly. And now going to go up the inside at turn 3. And Max Verstappen. That looked a little bit of a questionable overtake from Max Verstappen. Gasly pushed all over the track. But Zhou Guanyu has already just come into his own in second place right now on the intermediate tyre. The problem is these intermediate tyre runners need a little bit of rain to come fairly soon. Yuki Tsunoda is now in 8th place and Lawson is in 11th. Lawson could get himself some points here. Fernando Alonso trying to get past Charles Leclerc and does in the Aston Martin. I think the fact that they're on the intermediate tyre really plays into the Aston Martin's hand. Fernando Alonso is going to be very, very competitive. Oh, Liam Lawson with a penalty. 10-second penalty, I think, is an unsafe release. Oh, no, impeding from Liam Lawson. 10-second penalty for Liam. That is unfortunate. That's kind of the points that I was saying might be available to him. Disappearing away. Hamilton and Russell on the intermediate tyres, and therefore Albon and Piastri dropping back a little bit. And Verstappen then with Zhou Guanyu. Is he going to make it happen? Yeah, down in towards turn 3. Max Verstappen deciding that that's going to be the place he goes for these overtakes this afternoon. And now Verstappen has 10.5 seconds to make up on his teammate, Sergio Perez. Let's see then. Max Verstappen has been absolutely flying here this weekend. Has looked so much quicker than Sergio Perez on the intermediate tyre yesterday in qualifying. Can he put in some qualifying laps now? Red Bull already 1-2 again. Yeah, very uninteresting, unfortunately. They are just so much better in these sort of slower speed, medium speed corners too. Logan Sargent has been lapped by Sergio Perez. Because he's on the dry tyre and he's a sitting duck right now. Alex Albon's 8 seconds slower. 8 seconds slower on that last lap. You can't make that up. That's just silly. Why? Albon, Piastri, they've kind of thrown it away, unfortunately, those two. Any sort of opportunity. Because the track just, I don't think it's going to dry quick enough. They're 8 seconds off the pace. Sergio Perez now only 7 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen is chunking time away from the Mexican. That is absolutely ridiculous. He's like 3 or 4 seconds faster. Sainz on the radio. Charles Leclerc, front wing damage. Well then let Carlos go. If Charles is going to sit in front of him with front wing damage, surely you let the Spanish driver go through and try and catch up to Fernando Alonso, who's in front. because Fernando Alonso is now looking best for that podium spot, because Joe and Gasly nowhere near, but Carlos Sainz could get in and amongst it. He's only 5 seconds off the pace of Fernando Alonso, and we're only 9 laps into this Grand Prix. Is Charles Leclerc going to get out of the way of Carlos? No, still sitting in front of him. Not sure what the... Oh, no, here we go. There we go. Carlos Sainz finally given the run and allowed to go past from Charles Leclerc. Crazy, isn't it? We had Norris, Russell, Albon all in the mix for a podium, and it's the wily old fox Fernando Alonso who looks most likely. Unbelievable. He just always gets it right, doesn't he, Fernando? Always manages to just nail it. Done really, really well already this afternoon. Yeah, Stroll, less good. I think Stroll stayed out too long. George Russell on the radio being told there is rain coming. Both of the Mercedes cars running 13th and 14th right now, though. Pierre Gasly looking at Zhou Guanyu. Going away from the racing line, trying to cool down the intermediate tyres. And you can see Fernando Alonso coming into view as well. This is going to be an interesting one then. If there is rain to come, the intermediate tyre is still the tyre to be on. However, if the track does start to dry out a little bit, hopefully Alex Albon has held on to those tyres, because he could at least get himself back into points contention. Kevin Magnussen has come into the pits for Haas and has gone for a fresh set of soft compound tyres as Kevin Magnussen. So Magnussen in 12th place, actually, ahead of both of the Mercedes cars. Hamilton 13th and Russell 14th. And Lewis Hamilton gambling as well, by the looks of things. Hamilton coming into the pits. Albon has just hit the fastest lap of the race. So now maybe coming back towards soft compound tyre users. And Mercedes are kind of throwing this away, because they could have stayed out, like Alex Albon has or Oscar Piastri has, but they decided to stay out a little bit too long. And then they did swap to inters, and now they've gone back to softs when Alex Albon and Oscar Piastri are going to be setting fastest laps. Lance Stroll also coming into the pits as well. He went onto intermediate tyres way too late and is going to go back onto the softs. Zhou Guanyu pits. DRS also enabled. So Pierre Gasly on the intermediate tyres has done it. Fernando Alonso pits. That's the man you want to think about. Fernando Alonso has pitted as well. So Fernando Alonso, if this is right, could be right in and amongst it. Sainz pits, Tsunoda pits, Ocon pits as well. Lando Norris is into the pits too. So everyone is now coming in for soft compound tyres and trying to be on it a little bit earlier than the likes of Perez, Verstappen, Gasly, Leclerc. Be interesting to see. Sergio Perez has track advantage, so should get the pit stop first at Red Bull as well. Sergio Perez, will he come in for some soft compound tyres? Verstappen is given the box. That is awkward, especially if Sergio Perez hasn't been given the option. Then they are really giving Max Verstappen the opportunity there, when they should realistically give the driver with track position. But Verstappen coming into the pits and Sergio Perez continuing on for another lap on the intermediates. Gasly comes in. Charles Leclerc also looking like he's coming in as well, as the Ferrari pit garage is ready to go this time. At least they've got the tyres this time around. But here we go then. Gasly into the pits. Leclerc as well. So Gasly, where does he come out in terms of his pace with Alonso? No, Alonso comes out ahead of Pierre Gasly, I think, So Alonso up into the podium positions. So it is Perez, Verstappen, Alonso, our top three right now. Verstappen did good enough to keep himself ahead of the pack. Let's see then. Where was the Charles Leclerc damage? Ooh, yeah. Just a tiny little touch with Oscar Piastri as the rain came down. And yeah, the front wing end plate, front right wing end plate has completely disappeared off that Ferrari car. And it's going to be a long afternoon for Charles Leclerc, where downforce is so important to be lacking it on your front right tyre. Luckily, it's not the front left. The front left is probably the most important tyre this weekend. And Max Verstappen is going to come out in the lead of this Grand Prix because he pitted for the soft compound tyre first compared to Sergio Perez, I think. So Verstappen is going to shoot out. Yeah, and Verstappen is going to be miles actually ahead of Sergio Perez once Sergio Perez manages to make it all the way around and come out of the pits. So Verstappen, Perez, Alonso are top three. Gasly has been able to hold on to fourth place. Fifth place, Carlos Sainz. Sixth place, Zhou Guanyu. Magnussen, that early stop for soft compound tyres from Magnussen working out. He's now in seventh place in the Haas car. And where I said Haas were going to be completely uncompetitive, they've flown up because of the craziness of the damp track. Piastri up into eighth place ahead of his teammate Lando Norris, who's in 12th. Oh, replay of Fernando Alonso. Oh, I see. Just caught Zhou Guanyu a little bit napping. Came out of the pits right behind Zhou. But then down towards turn 3, just caught Zhou sleeping a little bit. And that's a very solid move from Fernando Alonso. That was the move to get him up into third place. Sergio Perez on the radio. And Max got the undercut. And Sergio Perez questioning how on earth. Happened to the brilliant graphics. Unfortunately, the Formula One powers that be no longer allow those kind of graphics on live streams. So we're working on a solution. Fastest lap then goes to Lando Norris, who is in 12th place right now. Alex Albon is in 11th place too. Remember those guys? They started towards the front. But now looking at the back of Esteban Ocon, and Yuki Tsunoda is in 9th place and kind of has a little bit of traffic behind him, does Yuki. Goodness me. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell both miles out of the points. And George Russell not very happy at all. Thought he was on for a podium this weekend and drops all the way down to 18th place. But the rain has started to fall in the pit lane once again. And Carlos Sainz is going to go for it on Pierre Gasly. Ooh. Gasly cuts back across, gets back in front of the Ferrari, and then closes the door at turn 2. Round turn 3 then. Is Carlos Sainz going to be able to stick to the back of that Alpine? Use a whiteboard. But I've got a couple of ideas kind of in the works, but well, unfortunately not able to get them done because the change came basically over the summer break. Yeah, I feel like Red Bull have kind of played into Max Verstappen's hands here, and Sergio Perez quite rightly questioning the choice. And Esteban Ocon, getting very close to the inside wall, and then getting the position from Yuki Tsunoda as well. Gasly and Sainz battling it out once again. Here we go then. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. should have the better top speed, but has to dip out of the dry line. Gasly moving across early, actually, and going around the outside. Everything Max does irritates me at the moment. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Oh, yellow flag in Sector 2. Oscar Piastri comes in for another set of soft compound tyres. And it's Logan Sargent in the wall. It's going to be a safety car, I think. Second time that Logan Sargent has put himself into the barriers at Zandvoort this weekend. Is running is over, and it's gone from possible points, for Logan Sargent to another race weekend to forget, and that is the safety car confirmed. Sargent, yeah, he's under a lot of pressure now, isn't he? A lot of pressure. How do Williams replace Logan Sargent, though, is the other thing. What kind of drivers are available? Which drivers might they look at? Because I don't know how many drivers are really in contention for a seat right now. So Verstappen and Perez are picked up by the Aston Martin safety car at the front there. Alonso in third place. It's going to be able to catch up to the back of the Red Bulls. He was a little bit off the back of them, to be fair. Let's see what happened. Turn. Yeah, just got onto the damp runoff area. Hit the curb, and the curb obviously maybe... And the curb was maybe still damp. Just zero grip. And George Russell comes in. Hard compound tyres go onto George Russell's car. And a penalty for Pierre Gasly. 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And Logan Sargent sits on the hill, reflects on another Grand Prix that hasn't really gone his way. Medium tyres for Lance Stroll, who's running around at the back of the pack now. 19th place after Logan Sargent is out of this one. Mick is an interesting one. Yeah. De Vries could come in for him as well. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, top three. Gasly in fourth place, but has a 5-second penalty in his Alpine. Carlos Sainz in fifth place now. Zhou Guanyu is a very interesting one because he's in sixth, but he was on the medium compound tyre. Kevin Magnussen was the first guy to go inters onto dry tyres. Ooh. Cells on the radar, 35 minutes away. So if there is going to be rain, it's not going to be for another half an hour or so. But yeah, Kevin Magnussen now running in 7th place in that Haas. Alex Albon has come back into contention. He obviously stayed out on the soft compound tyre and didn't ever go on to the intermediates. He's now running in 8th place, is Alex Albon. And we'll be very, very happy to see the fact that there is no rain as this moment in time. And Ocon in 9th place. Yuki Tsunoda currently at the back of the points in 10th. Alex Albon, the only driver yet to have pitted at all in this Grand Prix. Williams going for a completely separate strategy. Mick being reserve driver. Yeah. Obviously has that Mercedes link as well. Could push for him to take that seat. They really do want to keep Sargent, though. They've been very positive about Sargent all year long. Albon has very old tyres. That is true. Only driver yet to have pitted. Norris in 11th place. Come on. Come on. Let's see what he can do. Charles Leclerc in 12th, but remember has that damage to his front wing. Lewis Hamilton in 13th place. Oscar Piastri in 14th. Günther Steiner on the pit wall. Very hyped for Kevin Magnussen. Currently running in 7th place. Some good points available to Haas. If they've got the race pace, if they can get the strategy right. This is where it really counts for Haas this weekend. They've managed to get a little bit lucky and jump up into that 7th place position. Now is where it counts, though. Can they get it right now that they've had that luck roll their way? George Russell completely on the other end of the spectrum. 17th place on the hard compound tyre, and everything that could have possibly gone wrong kind of did for George Russell. Hoping for a podium position and dropped all the way back to 17th place. Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Gasly, Sainz, the top 5. I just don't see how that changes in any way. Can Fernando Alonso do something a little bit special? Max Verstappen's just going to disappear off into the distance, I feel. Ah, I see. So Charles Leclerc, the reason that he didn't get those tyres... It's been a real shuffle, though, of the grid, and has now brought everyone back together with this safety car. So Logan Sargent's done us a little favour here in terms of entertainment. It is interesting, though, that it seems to always be Ferrari, doesn't it? It's Ferrari once again are the team that just didn't have the tyres ready at the right time. Always seems to be Ferrari. Although, if it is Leclerc that made the call, apparently the Ferrari team wanted to stay out. Charles Leclerc wanted to come in. So it's a tricky one to kind of balance out in that way. Perez can get Max. I just can't see them allowing Perez to battle with Max, unfortunately. I can only imagine that they'll be like, Sergio, sit behind Max, and then the rain will come. Maybe Perez can jump in front of Max if the rain comes. He gets the intermediate tyres first. But I feel like that would be Perez like forcing the issue. I don't think Red Bull are going to help Sergio in any way whatsoever. Wow. Safety car in at the end of this lap then. Safety car in at the end of this lap. Oh no, sorry. Click the wrong button. Always rely on Ferrari for the memes. They never do disappoint. They're entertaining. You have to give it to them. They're entertaining, but rubbish. Sergio Perez then right on the back of his teammate Max Verstappen. Will Sergio Perez have a go? To be honest with you, I think Sergio Perez, even if Red Bull tell him not to battle, might as well have a go, mightn't he? And Fernando Alonso also right under the gearbox of Sergio Perez. Here we go then. Green flag. Max Verstappen is away. And has launched away. And I think Sergio Perez has already dropped off the back of Max Verstappen after that launch. Sergio Perez is actually under threat from Fernando Alonso. Carlos Sainz already putting Gasly under pressure. Gasly, of course, with a 5-second penalty, needs to battle for every single second that he can. Max Verstappen has launched away from Sergio Perez. Maybe caught Sergio Perez sleeping just a touch. Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Gasly, Sainz are top 5 still. Nobody swapping positions in and amongst that. Kevin Magnussen is under pressure from Alex Albon, but Alex Albon's tyres are a lot worse off. Zhou Guanyu still on the medium compound tyre. Needs maybe a little bit of extra time to get the temperature in there, but not under pressure right now from Kevin Magnussen. Valtteri Bottas has just lost a position to Oscar Piastri because Oscar's gone wide. Russell on the hard compound tyre. Where's Lewis Hamilton? 13th place, Lewis Hamilton. I was trying to spot where he was. And Charles Leclerc running fairly comfortably in front of Lewis Hamilton at this moment in time. And actually trying to look at the back of Lando Norris instead. Gasly once again under pressure from Carlos Sainz. And Albon is finally ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen not able to really put up the fight in that Haas car. And the Williams of Alex Albon back up into 7th place. Did start in 4th, remember, though. So still a long way to go until he gets back to where he started. Zhou Guanyu next up for the Williams car. Let's see. Kevin Magnussen. Yeah, a little bit of a slipstream. Ooh. And Kevin Magnussen moves under braking and almost smashes into Alex Albon. That was really dangerous from Kevin Magnussen. Really, really dangerous from Kevin Magnussen. He literally just darts across under braking. Nah, I'm pretty sure that'll be investigated, that Kevin Magnussen move on Alex Albon. So Sergio Perez already 1.5 seconds behind Max Verstappen. Fernando Alonso is actually clinging onto the back. Pierre Gasly still within DRS range of Fernando Alonso. That's going to help him out once DRS is enabled. Zhou Guanyu a couple of seconds off Carlos Sainz. Esteban Ocon now making his way past Kevin Magnussen as well. And the Haas car just falling apart in terms of race pace. Kevin Magnussen started this safety car in 7th place and just slowly falling back down the pack already. Yuki Tsunoda is in 10th place and only half a second behind the Haas. Charles Leclerc holding on And ahead of Lewis Hamilton, George Russell still running around in 17th place behind Nico Hulkenberg, as DRS is now enabled. So let's see then. This is the move from Esteban Ocon on Kevin Magnussen. In the slipstream of Kevin, Magnussen tries to cover the inside line. Ocon says, okay, I'll take the outside then, and runs all the way along the outside. Just about has enough to go through. And there it is. Magnussen is going to be investigated. And Oscar Piastri is going to have a little go at Valtteri Bottas, and does make it stick. Piastri back up into 14th place after that little error that cost him the position to Bottas before. Charles Leclerc just Lewis Hamilton, this is what I was saying. Lewis Hamilton just doesn't have the straight line speed. You can see that he's got much better pace than Charles Leclerc over the course of a lap, but doesn't have the straight line speed to get in front of him. So he's just going to be stuck. Let's see then, Lewis Hamilton looking up the inside of Charles Leclerc. Again, just doesn't quite have enough, and Leclerc stays ahead. But Lewis Hamilton right on the back of the Ferrari car. Can he keep it going? Needs to sit literally underneath the Ferrari's rear wing going around this final corner. And that's the thing. The Ferrari just, with the DRS and with the straight line speed advantage, just is able to elongate that gap a little bit. Lewis Hamilton, I think, is going to have a go, though. It's going to be a late braking move from Lewis Hamilton. It's a really solid move from Lewis Hamilton down towards turn 1. Thought he might be a little bit too far back, but made it stick. And Oscar Piastri then also taking advantage of the fact that Charles Leclerc had to go slightly offline as Lewis Hamilton came up the inside. And a black and white flag for Kevin Magnussen moving under braking. Oscar Piastri is loving it out there. Charles Leclerc dropping all the way down to 14th place. Actually did change his front wing, which I didn't see, Charles Leclerc. So the front right wing end plate is back together again, but a different front wing on the Ferrari car. And Valtteri Bottas is now all over the back of Charles Leclerc. I don't know what's going on with Charles Leclerc's car. Maybe that new front wing isn't the front wing that they need, because it is not working for them, and Charles Leclerc is slower than the Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas from what I can see right now. George Russell holding on to the back in the hard compound tyre. Is George Russell going to go for like a stick on these hard compound tyres until the end kind of thing? Ooh, incident involving Yuki Tsunoda and Ocon forcing a driver off the track. Yuki Tsunoda has been able to get past Kevin Magnussen, though, and up into 9th place. Kevin Magnussen in 10th. Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Gasly, Sainz still our top 10. Albon now in 6th place has been able to get past Zhou Guanyu. So has Esteban Ocon, who's now in 7th. Zhou Guanyu in 8th place. And Tsunoda 9th. Kevin Magnussen at 10th. Still a long way to go in this race, though, and I just don't think the Ferrari-powered cars have got anywhere near the pace required. I just don't think that Zhou and Magnussen are going to be able to hold out in the points. Yuki Tsunoda, though, I'm very happy for in 9th place. Fernando Alonso holding right onto the back of Sergio Perez, to be fair. Having DRS, following the Red Bull down towards the first corner. But not able to overtake this time around. And here's Lando Norris to try and get up into the points. Then Kevin Magnussen up the inside. And Lando Norris is into the point scoring positions. 10th place is where Lando Norris now runs. Started in 2nd place, though, remember. And Lewis Hamilton now also right behind Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen now out of the points. A black and white flag for him and looking like he's going to drop even further backwards with Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri ready to pounce behind him. So Albon is being told to go even longer on these soft compound tires. Wow. Going to be crazy to see whether or not these cars stop one more time, two more times. Because obviously some of these drivers have already stopped 3 times in this Grand Prix. There is Lewis Hamilton making the move on Kevin Magnussen, as I mentioned before, and getting it done very, very easily, actually, Lewis Hamilton. Up into 11th place. Who's leading the race? I'll give you one guess. He's from the Netherlands. Now, Max Verstappen leading the Grand Prix, and now with the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as well. Sergio Perez's teammate just behind in second. Fernando Alonso running in third place in the Aston Martin car. Those 3 have just nailed it. Like, those 3 got it right. And Verstappen actually didn't get it right in terms of strategy, but just has the pace of that Red Bull car. And then behind is a little bit of chaos, to be honest with you. Albon, Norris, Russell have all disappeared off down the running order. Gasly, Sainz, Albon now 4th, 5th, and 6th. Ocon, Joe, Tsunoda, and Norris rounding out the top 10. Gasly does have a 5-second penalty there, remember? And Oscar Piastri is now going to get in front of Kevin Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen effectively just a moving cone for these guys down towards turn 1 at this point. I think that's Norris, Hamilton, and Piastri in 3 or 4 laps have all gotten past Kevin Magnussen down towards turn 1. Lewis Hamilton desperate for points now in 11th place. Probably would have been in this position anyway because he started in 13th. Would have struggled to make up those positions. But now you can argue he's got a lot easier cars in front of him. Bar Lando Norris, Tsunoda, Joe, Ocon are all within touching distance and all very catchable for Lewis Hamilton. Wow. Liam Lawson running in 19th and still going. Darker clouds coming in, says Max Verstappen. And Yuki Tsunoda finally getting a run at Zhou Guanyu. Yes. Finally getting past Zhou Guanyu. Yes. Yuki Tsunoda up into 8th place. That medium compound tyre on the Alfa Romeo not doing Zhou any good, as Lando Norris is now next in line to jump in front of Zhou. Lando Norris all over the back of... Come on, let's get in front of Zhou, shall we? Have a go at Yuki. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton could have pitted really early, couldn't he, actually? So he was running in 13th place, so he could have been the gamble. I know that they left George Russell out for way too long, but they could have put Lewis Hamilton on a different strategy, and he could be miles ahead, right? He could be up with like the Gaslys of the world if Lewis Hamilton had got it slightly better. There is Lando Norris getting past Zhou Guanyu then. Interesting to see if he can get in front of Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda hasn't like disappeared off into the distance. In front, 0.3 of a second, the gap between Tsunoda and Norris. Ooh. Oh, Zhou Guanyu finds the inside line and keeps Lewis Hamilton behind him. Okay. So Lewis Hamilton is going to be stuck behind Zhou for just a little bit longer. I thought Hamilton might have a go there down towards turn 11, but no. Zhou's going to have Lewis Hamilton all over the back of him down towards turn 1, though, actually. I think Lewis Hamilton maybe just waiting an extra corner or two and then making it a lot easier for himself as Hamilton now goes into the points positions and up into 10th place. The team apparently saying that they pitted Verstappen first to cover off Fernando Alonso. That seems like absolute rubbish. Lando Norris then has dropped off the back of Tsunoda just a touch, actually. Doesn't look within striking distance, but having a little look at the AlphaTauri down in towards turn 1, if not necessarily going for a move in front of the AlphaTauri. But George Russell still hasn't made any moves back in 17th place and 0.4 of a second off Bottas. I literally say that as he moves past Valtteri Bottas. I swear I've just got a little bit of a curse. Whenever I say something, it will then instantly change. George Russell now up into 16th place and 0.7 off the back of Charles Leclerc, who has had zero pace in that Ferrari car. Verstappen, Perez, Alonso are top 3 still. Gasly in 4th place. Carlos Sainz in 5th. Hasn't been any change around there. Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda, Norris, Hamilton is 6th through 10th. And Oscar Piastri is now the driver just outside the points in 11th, as Zhou and Magnussen have now dropped to 12th and 13th place together. So those two Ferrari-powered cars that jumped up into the points during the safety car, unfortunately now just sort of 15 laps later at the back of this pack. And Nico Hülkenberg actually running in 14th place. Lance Stroll is coming into the pits again already. Interested to see what happens to Lance Stroll. Is this a retirement into the pits, or is this another set of tyres for the Aston Martin? See if it is. No, Lance Stroll in the pits and coming out of the pits once again with some soft compound tyres on. So clearly something not quite going as Aston Martin planned there. If my commentary is cursed, could I start talking about Verstappen? Yeah, he's doing very well. Is Max Verstappen. And there's Logan Sargent in a nice little deck chair. Found himself a space to sit rather than going back to the Williams garage anytime soon. Albon is running in 6th place now, and actually considering he's been on those soft compound tyres since the beginning, has got some really good pace. I feel like could come into his own on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. It's just whether or not Williams decide to go for that, as we do know there might be another possibility of rain. And Alex Albon right now, if he pits, he would come out in a lot of traffic, really. He'd lose track position heavily, would Alex Albon. And Max Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix in first place. So Max Verstappen going even quicker at the top of the standings. Sergio Perez now 5 seconds off his teammate. Another nearly 4 seconds to Fernando Alonso in third place. Another couple of seconds to Gasly. Another couple of seconds to Sainz. The top 6, top 7, 8, and top 8 really have all separated themselves out. Lando Norris, the only driver within DRS of somebody, and he's in 9th place. Then Lewis Hamilton within DRS of that too. Piastri, Joe, Hulkenberg, Russell, Leclerc. Bottas actually has DRS to Charles Leclerc. But yeah, that is all. So Norris and Hamilton, the only 2 drivers within DRS of the driver in front out of the top 15 drivers on track. So settling in now, I think, for a little bit of a more relaxed next 10 to 15 laps by the looks of things. Yuki doing really well. Did really well to got a little bit lucky, I would say, Yuki. Managed to obviously jump up quite a few positions going onto the intermediate tyre early. But, well, I say lucky. It's lucky that it rained, but they got the strategy right where other teams got it wrong. So you make your own luck sometimes. But yeah, Yuki running really well in 8th place. I think he is on for some points. Actually, he's got Norris, Hamilton, Piastri behind him. It's going to be close. I think Yuki Tsunoda might end up finishing 11th, which I know is so frustrating. He's absolute 11th place merchant that is Yuki Tsunoda. But yeah, Yuki might end up finishing 11th again. Oh, Zhou Guanyu is in. Medium compound tyres off, soft compound tyres on. And let's see what Zhou Guanyu can do with a set of softs then. And Valtteri Bottas has managed to move up in front of Charles Leclerc. So Charles Leclerc falling down to 15th place now. Obviously, he gained a place when Zhou Guanyu pitted, but then loses out to the other Alfa Romeo as Valtteri Bottas goes around the outside, all the way around the outside, and takes the position from the Ferrari. Do I have a girlfriend/partner? Does she share my passion for F1? She does not share my passion for F1. She is not a fan of F1 in the slightest. But there we are, It's good to have differences. See if it's these last laps. Yeah, it's holding back Lando Norris at this point. But Yuki Tsunoda just doing well, defending really, really well. So Norris is catching up down towards turn 1, 2, 3. We know that McLaren are really good in the first sector. But then through that middle sector, Yuki Tsunoda just stretching out enough of a gap every single time around to just about keep Lando Norris at bay down towards turn 1. And then Lando makes up the time in that first sector, gets really close, then loses out in that second sector. So Tsunoda's just doing the perfect job right now, maintaining his position and holding out. Liam Lawson is now on the back of Charles Leclerc. I think if you told Liam Lawson at the beginning of the weekend, if you told Liam Lawson on Thursday that he would be battling behind a Ferrari come Sunday, he probably would not have listened to you. Carlos Sainz asking if he could make it to the end on this set of tyres. obviously the tire degradation, they did go for the really hard compound tires this weekend. It is the C1, C2, C3. So, for instance, like this soft compound tire is going to be the hard compound tire in Monza in a week's time. That's kind of how it works. So this is the C3 tire, the soft compound tire that they're running on. But yeah, Liam Lawson all over the back of Charles Leclerc and with a real opportunity of overtaking a Ferrari race winner in his first race in Formula One. Wow. There's got to be an issue on Charles Leclerc's car. I think when he ran through the gravel, maybe, did he do a little bit of damage? Liam Lawson up the inside. Oh, I really want it to happen. He's going to go, though. He's going to stick it. Stick it. Oh. I kind of want Liam Lawson to overtake Charles Leclerc now. I'm in for this. Down towards turn 11. Go on. Liam Lawson. He's up. 15th place. Ticket off the list. Overtook Charles Leclerc. Ah, Leclerc's got DRS down towards turn 1 and gets back. Go on, and again. And again. Here's the entertainment for the next few laps while we wait for the possibility of rain. Ooh. Go on, Liam. It was a nice overtake. Use the DRS zone. Go up the inside. I think Charles Leclerc maybe made it a little bit easier for him. Because he knew he was going wide at turn 10. Meant he couldn't carry as much speed through the final sector. And maybe Charles Leclerc kind of taking advantage of the fact that it is his first Grand Prix a little bit there. Rude, if anything. Carlos Sainz in the pits then. I think after Ferrari decided that they couldn't go to the end on those tyres, they're going to swap onto another set of softs. And then these should get him to the end, you'd imagine, Carlos Sainz. So now it's about pressing on those tyres. George Russell, actually, we haven't mentioned in a little while. He's been able to kind of side his way through the field a little bit with Joe and Magnussen and those guys pitting. Charles Leclerc now pitting too. Oh, retiring the car. So Charles Leclerc is now out of the race and retired. I think it must have been, it's either when he went through the gravel or obviously when he had that contact with Oscar Piastri. But yeah, something wasn't right with that Ferrari car for the entire Grand Prix, let's be honest. Lando Norris, box. Sonoda's been causing them chaos, and Lando Norris deciding just to give up on trying to overtake Yuki Tsunoda on track and instead try and overtake him with an undercut. Norris kind of wants to come out in front of Liam Lawson. Yeah, this is a great gap. That's a great stop from McLaren. Because he's now behind Bottas, okay, but he's in a good chunk of free air. He's got 5-second gap to Valtteri Bottas. And now can really put the hammer down. George Russell replay. What's this little move from George Russell on a Haas? Hulkenberg super wide at turn 10, and then DRS for George Russell down towards turn 11. Does he just take advantage? He does, yeah. George Russell down to turn 11 on the inside. Turn 12 gets the inside line too. 13, 14 and disappears into the distance. George Russell now 2.5 seconds ahead of Nico Hulkenberg and running in 11th place. Esteban Ocon has pitted from 7th place as well. Ocon probably trying to come out just ahead of Valtteri Bottas, or maybe just behind Valtteri Bottas. It's going to be close, actually, for Esteban Ocon. And Ocon just behind Valtteri Bottas. So new set of tyres is the port of call. That's kind of screwed Norris a little bit, just because now Ocon is going to be in front of the McLaren driver, whilst he needs to get some lap times in. Might give him a little bit of a DRS advantage, though, Lando Norris there, so we'll have to wait and see. Lewis Hamilton is now the man tasked with trying to get in front of Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda, who earlier on in the season thanked Fernando Alonso. He said he learned a lot about defending from Fernando Alonso since he's joined Formula One. And let's see how good that defending is against a 7-time world champion in the Mercedes car. Down towards turn 1, Alex Albon comes into the pits as well. And Yuki Tsunoda, is he going to be able to defend from Lewis Hamilton? Looks like it. Squidges Lewis Hamilton to the inside, and Hamilton not able to take that position from Yuki at this moment in time. Hamilton maybe is going to have a look on the inside at turn 3. But again, Yuki Tsunoda just closes the door. Some very, very good defending from Yuki Tsunoda here. I'm enjoying this from Yuki. Verstappen now 8.5 seconds ahead of Sergio Perez. Getting silly, really, isn't it? Fernando Alonso in 3rd place. Sergio Perez, box for Sergio Perez. Let's see what he can do on a fresh set of softs then, Sergio. Needs to do something a little bit special to make up 8 seconds to his teammate, but we'll see. We'll come out in a nice little gap behind Gasly and ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. And Hamilton is into the pits then. So Hamilton was running just behind Lando Norris. Has he been able to jump up in front of Lando Norris, or will it be behind the McLaren still? And it's going to be behind Lando Norris, but it's also going to be behind Valtteri Bottas as well. And Hamilton also onto the medium compound tyre. Mercedes, I'm not sure, are paying attention much this afternoon. And Esteban Ocon getting past Valtteri Bottas. Up into 11th once again for Esteban. Some good points on the cards, actually, for the Alpine of Esteban Ocon. And Pierre Gasly as well, who's in the pits currently. What's wrong with Gasly? Oh, it's a 5-second penalty. I forgot. What's wrong? He's stopped. No, it's a 5-second penalty. He's there, though. Where's he going to come out, Gasly? Piastri's in the pits. Albon coming down. Is that Albon? No, that's not Albon. That is George Russell. So George Russell, just behind Pierre Gasly. Russell now on the hard compound tyre, though, right behind Pierre Gasly after that 5-second penalty, and literally right behind Pierre Gasly. Couldn't be closer, I don't think, George Russell. Is he going to go for it? Turn 8, turn 9, round turn 10. Obviously, going to have the DRS advantage towards turn 11. Oh, and a little bit out of shape from Russell there. That's such a shame. Yeah, and Russell's not going to be able to stick with him on the hard compound tyre to Gasly's now warmed up soft compound tyre. Tiny, tiny little error. George Russell. Carlos Sainz moving back past Yuki Tsunoda. Back up into 4th place now, Carlos Sainz. 10 seconds behind Sergio Perez, though. Yuki Tsunoda, I think, needs to come in, doesn't he? He was running in front of Lando Norris. Norris now up into 10th place on his fresh set of soft compound tyres. And is now looking at the back of Esteban Ocon. He's within a second of the Alpine as well. I know both of those guys kind of making their way through the field together, but Norris is going to get to a point where he's going to want to take... Alonso is coming in. Box for Fernando Alonso. That'll drop him in just ahead of Carlos Sainz. Needs to be a good pit stop, though, from the Aston Martin team. Carlos Sainz has done really well since putting on that fresh set of softs. Let's see then. Alonso coming in for Aston Martin. Swaps onto the softs. Oh, it's a slow stop. It's a slow stop. Front left tyre. And that's going to... I think that's opened Carlos Sainz up to a podium position here. It has indeed. There's Carlos Sainz going past. And Yuki Tsunoda for good measure as well. And that is really costly for Fernando Alonso. That means that podium position is now going to have to be fought for rather than guaranteed. Norris having a little look. Oh no, sorry, it's the replay on Hulkenberg. And a good overtake from Lando Norris. Goes past Nico Hulkenberg. Oscar Piastri also making a move on an Alfa Romeo. I think that's Zhou Guanyu, is indeed. And Oscar Piastri up into 12th. Here comes Max Verstappen then, our current race leader. And an incredibly solid stop from Red Bull. 2.2 seconds. Couldn't ask for much better than that, honestly. And Verstappen is disappearing off into the distance. Can't even see Sergio Perez. Oof. Carlos Sainz then, now 2.5 seconds ahead of Fernando Alonso, but Alonso with the bit between his teeth. Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly, the duo that we loved to see so much last year at AlphaTauri together. More off track than on track, but now on track together once more, and Pierre Gasly putting his ex-teammate under pressure. Gasly's got super fresh soft compound tyres, but will Yuki Tsunoda just let him past, or will he put up a little bit of a battle? Obviously, Tsunoda holding on. Ooh! And there's a lock up there from Tsunoda, and actually just lets Gasly past fairly easily. A little bit of a mistake from Yuki. Down towards turn 10, I think that was. Fernando Alonso has chunked away that gap at the Ferrari, by the way. Was 2.5 seconds, now 1.5 seconds. And Fernando Alonso finding some incredible pace in the Aston Martin. And Fernando Alonso's just set the fastest lap of the race. That's probably why he's finding some pace, because he's the fastest driver out there and is now within a second of Carlos Sainz already. It took him a lap to get within DRS range of Carlos Sainz. And if Carlos Sainz keeps Fernando Alonso behind him, I don't know what I'll do. I'll eat this bottle. Fernando Alonso within half a second now of Carlos Sainz. Literally just taking tenths after tenths after tenths. Carlos Sainz is going to be a sitting duck here to Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso chooses the inside line. Carlos Sainz tried to move over, but Fernando Alonso forced the issue and forced Carlos Sainz to give him that position back. So it is, after that slow pit stop, Fernando Alonso makes up for it and moves back up into third place and the podium position that he warrants this weekend. He's done incredibly well. George Russell is going to be quite an interesting watch. He's in 6th place, but he's on some very, very old hard compound tyres. He's managed to move ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, something that a lot... Ooh! And I think there's some contact there between George Russell and Tsunoda. Yeah, I think Tsunoda's taken some damage there because he's absolutely falling down the order. And Albon now is looking to try and get past Yuki Tsunoda as well. Yuki's got to come in now. He's just kind of thrown away this opportunity, really, Yuki. They left him out so long in comparison to the rest of the field. Were they trying to like get him to the end of the race? Just feels like Yuki Tsunoda's been out forever. He's still out now. They've got to bring him in. He's just going to tumble down the order now, unfortunately, Yuki. They should have covered off when Norris came in, I think. Esteban Ocon is next up in the Yuki Tsunoda battle and all over the back of Yuki Tsunoda right now. Yuki Tsunoda, I think with a little bit of damage. He's just so much slower than he was just like 2 laps ago. Tsunoda on the radio. Yeah, front wing damage. Checking the front wing for Yuki Tsunoda. Again, they just need to pit him. Lando Norris. If they'd have pitted Yuki Tsunoda at the same time as Lando Norris, like he'd have been just behind him. And now Lando Norris has caught up to him. And Yuki Tsunoda's a sitting duck. Norris is kind of in a little bit of a tricky scenario, though, because he wants Esteban Ocon to get in front of Yuki so that he can then get in front of Yuki, but he needs to find a time where he can get in front of Ocon himself. Ooh, little bit of rain around 10 laps from the end of the Grand Prix is what Christian Horner is telling Max Verstappen. So Max Verstappen, a little bit of pressure on the Red Bull driver. Incident involving Tsunoda and Russell noted, causing a collision. Tsunoda, car is okay. I mean, it's not looking okay. I think he's going to end up finishing 12th, maybe. Oh, Lewis Hamilton had a little look at George Russell. Lando Norris there. I was looking at Lando Norris and whether or not he was going to be able to take Yuki Tsunoda, but now Hamilton actually looking at Lando Norris and thinking he might be able to get past. Lando Norris does finally get past Yuki Tsunoda. Lewis Hamilton's trying to do the same and does as well. So Yuki Tsunoda topples down outside of the points in just one corner, loses 2 positions and goes down to 11th. Alonso on the radio. When the rain comes, it will be heavier than the start of the race. So Fernando Alonso probably just hoping that the rain comes at the perfect opportunity for him to pick up his 33rd win. Still wish points was for the top 15. Yeah, it does seem like the top 15 would be better, doesn't it? I agree. I'd quite like the points to be extended a little bit. Because Yuki Tsunoda's probably going to finish... Actually, maybe 12th. I think Oscar Piastri will probably get past him too. But he might be able to just about hold off Joe, and therefore he'll finish 12th, yeah. Fastest lap from Fernando Alonso. Maybe Fernando Alonso's been told... Well, Fernando Alonso has been told that the rain is coming. And Alex Albon then going around the outside of George Russell. Up into 6th place once again. So Albon pitted from 6th place. He's back up to 6th place. And he's got a few laps to try and catch Pierre Gasly if he can. Let's see then. Lewis Hamilton. This is the move. And gets ahead of Lando Norris. So Lewis Hamilton now looking like the driver that can battle Esteban Ocon. Oh, there's a big rain cloud coming. But it's still around about 5 kilometers away from that radar. Could do like a safety car, actually, just to slow everything down a little bit and give the rain some time to shift across. Verstappen on the radio. Ooh. Max Verstappen asks, will it be intermediate or full wet tyres? Christian Horner, not sure at the moment. So I think what's happening is everybody's just going to push now, right? Everybody's going to be thinking about that rain coming. It's going to just use up these tyres because they're likely going to have to change them before the end of the Grand Prix. So go for it. 15 laps to go. Push them as hard as you possibly can. Someone tell Perez that Fernando is faster. Fernando's absolutely flying. It is still 10 seconds, the gap between Alonso and Perez. So he's got a little while to kind of think about it as Sergio Perez. And here we go then. Pierre Gasly all over the back of Carlos Sainz. And the Ferrari lost out to Fernando Alonso. Will he now lose out to Pierre Gasly? Oof. And Carlos Sainz just squeezes the gap. And Gasly then sticks behind in 5th place. This bodes well for Alex Albon, actually, who is going to try and catch up to the back of these two. And if they could keep squabbling like this and costing each other lap time, then Alex Albon can come into contention. Lewis Hamilton is flying right now. I told you he was going to have a battle with Esteban Ocon. Whilst we've been looking at Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, his teammate, has actually lost out to Lewis Hamilton, and Hamilton goes up into 8th position. So now Hamilton's pretty much up into 7th, because I don't imagine that George Russell will put up too much of a battle either. And then Hamilton could look at catching Albon. Hamilton on the soft compound tyre to Albon on the medium. And the soft compound tyres just look so much quicker than anything else out there this weekend. Gasly on the radio. Rain is about 2 minutes away from the perspective of Alpine. It's going to come all the way down from the last corner, apparently. Lewis Hamilton right on the back of George Russell, and surely George Russell's got to let his teammate past here sooner rather than later. Oh, George Russell dips himself onto the grass. What happened there for George? Big mistake from George Russell. No idea what happened. That looked like almost like a puncture or something. Obviously it wasn't, but like the jerk to the right-hand side from George Russell was immense. Does let Lewis Hamilton pass, but probably cost Lewis a tenth or two and a fright as well. Lewis Hamilton's heart skips a beat in his Mercedes car, but gets in front of his teammate now and is able to run towards Alex Albon as quickly as he possibly can. Here's Pierre Gasly on Carlos Sainz once again. The Alpine trying to go around the outside and makes it stick. Finally, Pierre Gasly up into 4th place, has been sitting behind Carlos Sainz for lap after lap after lap. And now Carlos Sainz in 5th, Pierre Gasly up into 4th place. Gasly too far away from Fernando Alonso. You'd say 10 seconds away from Fernando Alonso. But 4th place for Pierre Gasly is an exceptional performance from the Frenchman, considering where Alpine were looking like they were going to be this weekend. What actually happened here for George Russell? Oh, he dips the rear left tyre onto the grass. Loses all the grip. And then actually goes across the grass at the front as well. And Hamilton on the radio asking to be let past and is let past. And Sergio Perez chucks on the intermediates, although the tyres weren't ready. Sergio Perez out of the pits then. Gasly also coming into the pits, and everybody running into the pits as quickly as they possibly can. Sainz in the pits for Ferrari, gets the intermediate tyres on. Ocon in the pits as well. No, Ocon, sorry, has continued. Sainz in the pits, Hamilton in the pits, Russell in the pits, Norris in the pits. A double stack for Mercedes. And it's cost... Ooh, Max Verstappen deciding to stay out. Fernando Alonso deciding to stay out too. Max Verstappen saying that he doesn't want to come in right now. He's still got a 20-second lead over Fernando Alonso. And a very good time to pit indeed. Verstappen comes into the pits for some intermediate tyres. And Verstappen will stay in the lead by a considerable margin. Fernando Alonso, is he going to come in as well? Yes. Fernando Alonso coming in. Albon has kind of thrown this a little bit away on the medium tyre. Ocon on the radio. Very, very heavy rain was Esteban Ocon told, and Esteban Ocon, I think, didn't come up. Liam Lawson just unlapped himself from Max Verstappen, but then thinks differently and gets out of the way. A lot of double stacking there for intermediate tyres. Yeah, Albon and Ocon, the two to really miss out. Just went a lap later. And Albon is going to come out behind Norris and in front of George Russell. It's going to be a battle between those two again. Albon and Russell are very close friends. Obviously, ex-Williams and current Williams. And George Russell's going to try and go around him. And does make it count. George Russell up into 8th place. Albon down into 9th. And Ocon has gone for the full wet tyre. Bit of a gamble by Alpine that the rain is going to continue to be really, really heavy. So, Ocon maybe needs to hold on and stick at least within touching distance of the gap, though. Ocon. And Ocon not very happy at all. And Sergio Perez is off. Sergio Perez has gone deep into turn 1, has gone off the track, and that's Fernando Alonso, isn't it? Fernando Alonso takes 2nd place. Sergio Perez still in 3rd place. The podium position still for Sergio Perez there. But probably just aquaplane down towards turn 1. The rain is absolutely hammering down. And it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier. So what happened to Sergio Perez? Just literally just locked up. Locked up and aquaplaned. And Sergio Perez just couldn't get the car to stop. The tires had stopped moving, but the car continued and touched the barriers with his used the barriers as a little bit of a brake for himself. And there we go. There is someone in the barriers, Zhou Guanyu, and it's a virtual safety car. Verstappen into the pits for the full wet tires under virtual safety car conditions. Joe says he's okay, but he's going to be out of the race. Everybody else is going to have to think about the full wet tires, though. Verstappen comes in and is first onto the full wets, apart from Esteban Ocon, who is also on the full wet tire. Perez is also in the pits then. Alonso, I think, stayed out on the intermediate tires, and it's a red flag. And they just brought Sergio Perez in just before the red flag. Verstappen out in front. Alonso in second place, but now Sergio Perez tumbles down the order to 6th. I think this might be the end of the Grand Prix, I'm going to be honest. Sergio Perez, a huge loser there. And everybody just tiptoeing back around as carefully as they possibly can. Zhou Guanyu was the driver to lose it down towards turn 1. We saw Sergio Perez touch the barrier, but Zhou Guanyu a little bit more than a touch. Quite a heavy shunt with the barrier, the Chinese driver. But that is a red flag. And I don't think we're going to have a 10-lap sprint. No. Oh, and Sonoda goes across the gravel as well. But continues. Oh, and then it's Zhou Guanyu just behind, who then barrels into the barriers. Can see the tires aren't actually rotating. That's just full aquaplaning from Zhou Guanyu. Comes down towards turn 1. God, you can't see anything. The blue light on the right-hand side of the track. He hits the brakes, but nothing happens. Wow. That is scary. That is very scary indeed. And I can see why they have decided to red flag the race, because there was a lot of drivers, George Russell and no, that's Lewis Hamilton included, going super deep into turn 1. Just aquaplanes completely. The front right tire of Lewis Hamilton's car stationary as he tries to go around turn 1. Max Verstappen still leads this Grand Prix, soaking wet in his Red Bull car on the full wet tires as well. think it's been a safety call, right? A little bit of a safety call from the team there. Kind of makes sense. Esteban Ocon, not very happy at all with his race engineer there. Asking why he was put onto the wet compound tyre rather than the intermediate. Obviously, it would have played out nicely if he would have stayed on the wet tyre now that this rain has come, but obviously the red flag means that instead he has to swap his position. It's absolutely barreling down. Oops, sights. Heaviest part of the rain has passed, although possibly more coming in 20 minutes. Logan Sargent still stuck out at turn 8. Two big shunts this weekend for him as well. Will we resume? I think we... maybe. It's tricky to know, to be honest. To be honest, I was expecting the race to kind of be done by now, because I put a little bit of a... might as well talk about it now, whilst we're here. Let me get it up on my screen. If you head over to the community tab, on another tab, you know, open a tab, head over to the community, and on there is a little... Is it live? Yeah, it's been live for like 20 minutes. Is a little link. I'm going to... I think Sergio Perez will probably end up starting in 6th place from what we're seeing as well. Should be pretty harsh on him. He's done really well up until this point. I'm going to put a little link down below to the community tab. Hit that little link. Over on the community tab, I've put a little request for some hot takes post Dutch Grand Prix. So have a little think about a hot take that you've got. And if you've got a hot take for the Dutch Grand Prix, you will be involved in a video that's coming out hopefully tomorrow. So get your hot takes in there from the Dutch Grand Prix. One of which probably should be about the fact that Sergio Perez got absolutely screwed over by Red Bull on the soft compound tires, on the swap from the Inters. So we'll get a 10-minute restart warning before the drivers get set to go once again. Beautiful. Love it. Cool. I got that done. Might as well have done that while we had a little bit of time. What should we discuss? I was hoping Alonso could have used the rain to nab Max. Yeah, the problem was Max was just so far ahead. Had like a 20-second advantage over Fernando Alonso. Ooh. It's an onboard of Yuki Tsunoda. What's gone on here then? Is this just him going through the gravel? Yeah, we saw that before. That's fine. Lewis Hamilton did the same thing. It's just Zhou Guanyu. I think Joe kind of tried to get out of the spray of Tsunoda, maybe, and then yeah, just slid into the barrier. Nothing that Joe could do at all there. Ooh, Tsunoda taking a little bit of gravel back with him to the pits, though. Although, at least he's back in the pits. I suppose Zhou Guanyu is taking some Tech Pro barrier with his car on the walk back. We get rain like this pretty much daily in South Florida. I have always thought about that. The kind of I don't know when it rains here, when it rains in the UK, like everything just kind of stops. Like we get any kind of weather that is untoward from just sort of mildly cold. We get any kind of rain, we get any kind of sun, we get any kind of snow. The entire place just kind of shuts down. Oh, Max Verstappen hits the wall on the way into the pit lane. Wow, okay, so when he was swapping onto the full wet tires, he did hit into the wall, Max Verstappen. Might have done a little bit of damage to that Red Bull car. Oh no, sorry, that's Sergio Perez. Ah. I know safety is everything, but what's the point in having the wet weather tyres if they're never used? The problem was too many drivers were on the intermediate tyre there. You can just see that like everyone who was on the intermediate tyre was just aquaplaning like crazy. I think if everyone had gone onto the full wets straight off the bat, and they weren't just sliding all over the place, then maybe we'd have seen it. When the race restarts, it will be full wets, I imagine. If the race restarts, I should say, rather than when. If the race restarts, it will be full wet tires. But yeah, it is really annoying that we never really get to see the full wets. The problem that they also have is the spray. They tried to... Liam Lawson, bless him. Bless Liam Lawson's little heart. I kind of forgot he was there. He's had the trickiest weekend you can imagine. It's like, here you go. Liam, Here's your first Formula One race. You're going to have mixed conditions in qualifying where you're on an intermediate tyre that you've never used before. And then in the race, you're going to start on the softs. You're going to have to go onto that intermediate tyre once again, a lap into the Grand Prix. Then you're going to have a mixture of medium and soft compound tyres for a little while, and then torrential rain. Sound good? Sound impossible to do correctly? Liam, I'm very, very impressed, my good friend. Liam. Lando Norris out of the car. Looking at the data with the McLaren team, probably just frustrated more than anything else that he's should have been a podium for Lando Norris. Should have been an easy podium for Lando Norris, to be honest. What is happening? There's a man with a microphone. The Dutch fans enjoying the rain. It looks like the rain is kind of slowing down, though. Not quite stopped yet is the thing. We've got a lot of time left on the clock, though. You got to remember, so Formula One races have a 3-hour clock to them. We're about an hour and 40 minutes in. So we've actually got like another hour and a bit. So we could actually be waiting like an hour or so. Some way to prepare a possible future in Formula One. Oh, wait, what was I talking about? The spray. They got distracted by Liam Lawson. The spray, so they're trying to obviously find ways of getting rid of the amount of spray from the cars, because that's the only real problem they've got with the safety at the moment is the visibility. Like, you just can't see anything when you're inside of a car and the spray comes off the car in front. So what they're trying to do is look at a way of reducing spray. They tried spray guards in Silverstone, and they didn't really work because the diffuser still produces quite a lot of spray as well. So unfortunately, we're at a point where we haven't quite got an answer and a solution to how to get rid of the spray, because the spray guards for the tires didn't work because the diffuser was still putting out too much spray, and we can't just ask the teams to completely change the diffuser on every single car just in case it rains. So then it's like, okay, how do we add something to the car or remove something from the car to try and change how it disperses water from underneath and how much spray there is from the diffuser? It's so tricky. Such a difficult question for Formula One to try and answer. I really don't envy them. It was that floor damage for Charles Leclerc. We hadn't actually got confirmation, but there we are. Floor damage for Charles Leclerc. Of course. Charles Leclerc there. Yeah, it was floor damage then, which apparently came from the contact with Oscar Piastri. Although I feel like it probably came from that little trip across the gravel. He probably doesn't want to say that though, does he? And then talking about the intermediate tyres and that pit stop that didn't quite go to plan, but he came in very, very late, did Charles Leclerc. And actually, he's fairly happy with the fact that they still managed to get the intermediate tyres on, even though he had a slow pit stop. He'd have made that back by putting the intermediate tyres on when he did. If Max wins the race, will it be fully undisputed? Would it be fully undisputed his claim at greatest driver in Red Bull history? Ooh, some big drivers in there. Mark Webber, David Coulthard. Obviously Sebastian Vettel is the one. It's tricky, right? Sebastian. The thing is, we talk about Vettel now, whereas we've seen all of Sebastian Vettel's career. So it's very difficult to know, because what if Max Verstappen finishes this season and retires? You know, it probably won't happen. Or what about if Red Bull next season aren't as competitive as they are now? And Max Verstappen is a 3-time world champion and never gets the 4th world championship like Sebastian Vettel has. And also, we saw Sebastian Vettel go and do it at another team. I know he didn't win a championship, but he was very, very close at Ferrari with Sebastian Vettel. And I don't know, maybe if he goes to Sebastian Vettel, maybe if Verstappen gets an opportunity to win titles at another team, but I can't ever see him leaving Red Bull, so it's all a bit weird, isn't it? Give it another couple of years, I think. Another couple of years, and if Max Verstappen is still winning so dominantly in this vein, then yeah, it probably is time to say that he is the better of the Red Bull drivers, and maybe Sebastian Vettel goes down as the second best Red Bull driver ever. But then he's never done it at another team. Tricky. Who would I give driver of the day? Oh, that is a very good point that you've made there. Driver of the day. It's so hard because I feel like everyone, or like the strategy has gone wrong for everyone at some point or another. No one's had a flawless race apart from Max Verstappen. So I feel like Max will probably get it just because he's the only driver that's had start to finish, no mistakes in terms of strategy, no mistakes in terms of tires. Like, I suppose he had that one, but then he made it up very, very quickly at the beginning of the Grand Prix. Like, just got back into the lead within moments. Gasly is a very, very good shout, doing really, really well, and had a 5-second penalty and is still right up there. So yeah, Gasly probably. Gasly's a very good shout. Like, I would say like a Lewis Hamilton or something. Like, Lewis Hamilton's done really well to battle his way back through, but again, shouldn't have been down there in the first place. And I think it's always annoying when Hamilton, like, because he qualified poorly, now gets kind of driver of the day. A bit like we've seen with Sergio Perez a couple of times this season, where they're like, okay, he got driver of the day for lots of overtakes and exciting racing. But the only reason we saw lots of overtakes and exciting racing was because he qualified poorly. Alonso is a very good shout. Yeah, Alonso is the only driver that I can't think of a clear error from Fernando Alonso now that I reflect on my statement. Yeah, Fernando Alonso, second place finish. It's got to be, it's one of them, isn't it? Gasly, Alonso's a really good shout as well, yeah. That is a very good point, Sally. That is a very, very good point. On an unrelated note to Formula One, okay, I was noting that the Netflix show Heartstoppers setting is near where I am in England, in the Norfolk region. Is it? I can't say I've seen it. Maybe I'll give it a watch. I'll just be like, you know when you see like somewhere, so like the Marvel films, I can't remember I don't really watch the Marvel films, but some of it was filmed at the university that I went to in Norfolk. So there's like a building that they filmed in, and some of it is filmed. And I've only ever seen like 2 of the Marvel films, but I did recognize that building. So it's going to be one of those. I'm going to watch Heartstopper and be like, been there? Know that one? Been there? They should change driver of the day to driver of the weekend. Ooh, yeah. I feel like most people do that in their heads anyway, though, right? Like, a lot of people kind of, when they think driver of the day, they take into account qualifying, or at least they should take into account qualifying. Like I said, if you qualify poorly, and then have an incredible race because you're like battling your way through the field and getting past Hasses and Alfa Romeos. Like, I kind of take that into account. Oscar Piastri in 10th place in the points, but quite a disappointing race for him, really. Started in 8th place, hasn't been able to quite make up the positions that he'd have been hoping for, and McLaren really needed this race to just stay dry for the entirety of it, didn't they? There is Pierre Gasly. 5-second time penalty as well for Pierre, and he's still in 4th place. Could be on for a podium. It's going to be a tricky one, but he's going to be right up there. The fans are absolutely loving life. Still soaking wet, but loving life by the looks of things. The red flag has continued. I have to say, McLaren screwed up big time. Oh, massively. Massively, massively. Left the cars out way too long. So did Mercedes. Mercedes and McLaren is the word I was looking for. Mercedes and McLaren both really messed up. It's going to be wet compound tires for everybody, right? I think everybody has to come back onto the race with wet tires on. Hey Jude, love this track. Da 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 da. Love it. Oh. The rain has stopped. The rain has stopped, but apparently there's more rain to come in about 20 minutes' time. So, more than enough time to get your hot takes in. Head to the link on the community tab. Get your little hot take in from the Dutch Grand Prix. There might be more to come. Get your pencil ready at least. Because I need at least 12, really. Maybe do 2. Do 2 if you fancy it. Any chance of a few crashes off the restart? Most definitely. Like, we've seen restarts off red flags are often very competitive. You think back to Australia, that was dry and it was a standing start, but that was chaos. I imagine this will be a rolling start if we do get restarted. So be behind the safety car. But still, there'll be a lot of drivers that want to make up positions and are given an opportunity that they didn't really have. You know, you think of Fernando Alonso. He was 20 seconds behind Max Verstappen. He's now within a second of him off a restart. 7 laps left to go. His 33rd Grand Prix victory on the line. He will definitely want to do something a little bit extra here, Fernando Alonso, to see if he can ruin the Dutch party and take home a win for himself. Oh, they're debating it right now, actually. The standing start versus rolling start. I just don't think standing starts are a good idea in these kind of weather conditions. It's just going to be so wet. So wet out there. Even if they're on the intermediate tires, I don't think we should do a standing start. Rolling start for me. Make sure everyone actually starts the race safely, and then we actually get the racing. You know what I mean? Okay, we could have a standing start. We could get a third of a lap's worth of racing because everyone smashes into each other and there's absolute chaos at the end. But that isn't, for me, that isn't racing. For me, that isn't what I want. I could swear I just saw a cigar-shaped UFO near the track in the sky on the F1 TV broadcast. Okay. An interesting take. Are you, we're saying that Formula One has been visited by alien. I don't know where to take that, Mallory. I'm not sure. I was going to try and find a tangent. I don't think there is one. Oh, what is happening in life? I love the vibe of like dance techno music that the Dutch seem to go for. It's just like everyone's having a great. It's turned from Formula One race to festival really quickly. Everyone's just bouncing around in the grandstands. Will always be more impressive in your opinion. Go on then, Survivors United. Delve into that a little bit for me. Vettel's 9 wins in a row will always be more impressive. Surely 9 wins is 9 wins, however you suit it. You got to get the car around. You got to finish the race. You got to finish in first. Buzzing at the Dutch Grand Prix. I'm jealous. I want to be there. Looks great. Ooh. We still haven't got that 10-minute warning though. We're still waiting. Still waiting. Gunther Steiner should get the chance to lead a more competitive team. He was at Red Bull, remember? So, Gunther Steiner, the whole kind of trajectory, I don't know if you've read his recent book, but it's a good read, actually. I mean, it doesn't tell you too much that you don't already know. It's kind of like an insider's guide to the 2022 season and kind of just walks through kind of Haas's weekends at each Grand Prix, which weren't amazing, to be honest, apart from that one in Brazil, which he does go absolutely nuts about in the book. But, Carlos Sainz doing a little jog, and there we go. Race will resume at 14 minutes past. That is our 10-minute warning. Yeah, but Gunther Steiner, he talks about the fact that he started off at Red Bull, was kind of working in and around the Red Bull team, but then wanted to go out and do something of his own. He talked to Niki Lauda about it. Lauda kind of gave him the contacts that he needed to start a Formula One team, and then Gene Haas came in with the financial backing as well. So it's quite an interesting journey that Gunther Steiner has been on throughout his Formula One career, and obviously getting to the point where he started his own franchise in Haas, and how he got to that point, talked enough people into giving him enough cash to do so. And then since then, it's been absolute chaos. Haas have been one of the most entertaining teams on the grid by a long, long way. We all remember Rich Energy. We all remember Nikita Mazepin. It's all been very, very difficult for Gunther Steiner in terms of his life. I feel like he probably will have a heart attack at some point, and Formula One will be to blame. Vettel had a more competitive season during that time from Mercedes and Alonso and competent teammate the Verstappen during his 9 wins. Red Bull wasn't even the quickest car in qualifying at some tracks, whereas Vettel still got pole and dominated the races. That is fair. Max Verstappen has definitely had nobody anywhere near his vicinity as he puts on a fresh helmet to get ready to go. Any notes in the book about the little boat? There's notes in the book about the fact that he has to do like a lot more TV work and a lot more media work now that he's sort of a Formula One boss in this era of Formula One. And he does talk about the fact that, you know, before Drive to Survive, he could walk around a Formula One racing track and some people wouldn't even know who he was. Post Drive to Survive, he's like one of the biggest celebrities in Formula One, right? He has gone stratospheric as Gunther Steiner. Everyone knows who he is. I feel like Gunther Steiner is probably up there with like Toto Wolff and Christian Horner as the most recognizable team principals. I feel like us, like a lot of Formula One fans who love it, would know like who Mike Crack is and Otmar, for instance. But I feel like if you just showed like random fans, or like not even fans, just people in and around the Formula One sphere but maybe don't follow it a lot, they'd probably know Christian Horner, they'd probably know Toto Wolff, and they'd probably know Gunther Steiner, and then I doubt they'd know many of the other ones. It's just a little bit different. Like Franz Tost, for instance. Franz Tost's been there ages, forever, but he's just quite a quiet man. He doesn't get involved too much in the media stuff. He gets in, does his job, gets out. You know what I mean? Like Franz Tost, I just don't feel like it has the same celebrity as those three that I mentioned before. Plenty of doors broken. That was just the ones, Kevin. Plenty of doors broken. Plenty of cars broken from Kevin Magnussen this weekend. He's been all over the shop. Lewis Hamilton getting set in his Mercedes helmet once again. Must be so weird to try and have a conversation with someone whilst wearing a helmet. I don't know if, like, you just can't hear anything. Just someone, like, screaming at you from about a foot away. Alex Albon. The man, the myth, the legend. Does so well in that Williams car this weekend. Through thick and thin. Just manages to keep it going. Logan Sargent, his teammate, I said might be on for points, and then it very quickly dwindled away to absolutely not. Rolling start procedure. So it's going to be a rolling start behind the safety car to begin with, and then Max Verstappen will get us going. Quick drying of Max Verstappen's shoes as he jumps into the car. Get him strapped in and ready to go. About 5 minutes now away from the restart of this Grand Prix. 7 laps left to go. One of which will be obviously the formation lap that we will have. There's still a little bit of action to be played out though. Fernando Alonso sitting in second place will undoubtedly at least have a look at Max Verstappen. Try and give it a go. Might as well. Nothing to really lose from this point forward. I mean, I suppose the points. But what's points? What's points when you could get a win and you're Fernando Alonso at this point? You know what I mean? Lando Norris looking to move forward as well. Did really well over the course of the Grand Prix. Got a little bit stuck behind Yuki Tsunoda. Pitted at the right time there. Yuki Tsunoda, unfortunately, barreled backwards from that point, whereas Norris was able to keep going forwards. Hamilton, too, kept going, pushed on a little bit from that position. Rolling start, but for chaos. It's nowhere close. Yeah, very true. I think it's because the track is still wet. If it had fully dried, or even was dry for, or even there was a dry line, you know what I mean? I think we maybe will have seen a standard start. But rolling start, safety car for 2 laps. There you go, confirmed 2 laps of safety car. So 5 laps of racing is what we could have. And we're going to see in 5 laps who can make the difference. You've done so much work. You've done 65 laps of racing. You've put your heart and soul into it, and everything could change with just 5 laps of racing in front of us. The whole pack squished back together once again. Sergio Perez will be so frustrated. Brought in for the wet compound of tyre right at the end of the session. Just couldn't get back out on track and lost track position to many, many teams. Glad they're racing to the finish. Surprisingly entertaining race. Lap 15. There's been a little bit more action. Oh, yeah, definitely. It was a very, very action-packed first kind of 20 laps. Then I'd say it kind of mellowed out a little bit in the middle. And then became very, very entertaining once again with 5 laps left to go. Well, 7 laps left to go, but 2 behind the safety car. Race will resume. Again, confirmed. 17:14 local times. That is in 2 minutes' time. And a rolling start procedure with 2 laps behind the safety car. That's the only problem as well with these cars right now is because we don't do refueling in Formula One. So they fuel for the entire race at the beginning. There's no way of elongating the race in any way or changing that up because all the teams have to come back with enough fuel, and they only have enough fuel for 74 laps or something mad, or it's 76 laps. So if you're doing a 72 lap race, they fuel it literally just above. Restart order. We'll see Sergio Perez in 3rd place. So Verstappen, Alonso, Perez. Gasly in 4th. Carlos Sainz in 5th. Lewis Hamilton 6th. Lando Norris in 7th. George Russell just behind in 8th. Albon and Piastri up in the points positions. And Ocon is just outside the points in 11th. Tsunoda there as well. Lance Stroll actually is suddenly in 13th place out of nowhere. And then dropping backwards. Liam Lawson, 2nd from the back, starts in front of Kevin Magnussen. What can he do there? He's going to start behind Valtteri Bottas, though. Nico Hulkenberg also in front of him. But Liam Lawson still in the Grand Prix. We've seen Logan Sargent smash into a wall. We've seen Zhou Guanyu smash into a wall. Liam Lawson, the rookie, in his first Grand Prix, still rattling around after the horrible conditions that he has seen over the course of his first Grand Prix weekend. Intermediate tyres on the cars then. And coming back around into the pit lane. Cars getting into the right order. And here we go then. Behind the safety car, the full order will be resumed. Gasly in 4th place might also have a little look at a podium position here. FIA just trying to get everyone in order, leaving the garages 2 by 2. Come on then. 5 more laps for Max Verstappen to equal Sebastian Vettel's record of 9 wins in a row. Safety car for at least 2 laps, of course, so just watching to see whether everyone has got going again. Some very bizarre commentary on Sky. Like what? What are they saying? What's going down? Ooh. Here we go then. Coming around the final sector. The safety car still out of course. Fernando Alonso keeping his tyres on the wet stuff, trying to make sure those intermediate tyres don't overheat too much behind Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez in 3rd, Gasly 4th, Carlos Sainz 5th, Hamilton, Norris, Russell, Albon and Piastri all in the points right now. Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda in 11th and 12th will be hoping that they can jump up. Some very light rain expected in a couple of minutes from Fernando Alonso's engineer. Could do without any rain, really, at this point. We've had enough of it now. We want to see some racing. Spray all over the place right now. Safety car goes across the line. We start lap 66. And the safety car should be in at the end of this lap if they stick to the 2-lap requirement for the safety car. So they're just going to be communicating now and talking about whether or not it's going to be the right time for the safety car to come in. Ooh. Some teams obviously on fresh intermediate tyres. That's a good point, actually. Both of the Mercedes guys talking about the fact that they're on used intermediate tyres. Only 3 sets of intermediate tyres for the weekend. And if you've used all of them over the course of qualifying yesterday and the race start today, then unfortunately you've got to use yourself some intermediates that have been through some laps before. Lawson did well with that fight in Charles. Yeah, he did really well, actually. Did really well in that fight. Max Verstappen staring in his mirrors at Fernando Alonso, knows that Fernando will be doing everything in his power to try and get in front of the Red Bull. Obviously, Sergio Perez on the last restart after the safety car before wasn't able to do that much damage to Verstappen. But he's got the rolling start going. Green flag is waved and we are back underway then with Fernando Alonso behind Max Verstappen down towards turn 1. Let's see, as both of those guys start lap 67 of this Grand Prix. And Fernando Alonso is not messing about. He's going to have a little look at Verstappen, if nothing else. And only a couple of car lengths in it. Verstappen comes out of turn 1 still in the lead, but Fernando Alonso certainly not letting Verstappen lie easily. And then Hamilton all over the back of Carlos Sainz. Lando Norris also under pressure from George Russell. So both of the Mercedes cars worried about the fact that they're on the intermediates. But George Russell has been able to make it matter and gets in front of Lando Norris. Hamilton and Russell up into 6th and 7th place. Lando Norris 8th now then. Albon still holding on to points in 9th. And Sergio Perez might get a pit lane speeding penalty. Speeding in the pit lane, Sergio Perez. That might be a 5-second penalty, which puts Gasly properly in contention. He's 3 seconds off the back of Sergio Perez. Needs to stick there. And Alonso is all over the back of Verstappen once again. The spray all over the Aston Martin car. And Perez has been given a 5-second penalty. That opens it up for Gasly to get into the podium positions then. Gasly just needs to finish within 5 seconds of Sergio Perez. So Fernando Alonso. Oh, what's happened to George Russell? I think George Russell must have had an incident. He's fallen all the way down to the back of the pack. Must have gone off somewhere. Oh, Lando, let's not do that, shall we? George Russell, I'm out. Come to a stop has George Russell. What happened there? George Russell, some kind of problem, I think. Come on, Gasly. I absolutely love Pierre. Hence the Pierre stuff. Come on, Gasly. 5 seconds the gap. Ah, it's a puncture. Puncture for George Russell. And a 3rd DNF of the season for George Russell. Ouch. Come on, Alonso. Alonso still within a second of Max Verstappen. Just about. Pierre Gasly then a couple of seconds off the back of Perez. And Perez actually could lose a position to both Gasly and Sainz at this rate. Gasly holding on to the back of Sergio Perez and got a little bit of clean air because the Alpine doesn't need to go right underneath Sergio Perez. Little look, Lando Norris, little battle. Where is this touch? Is there a touch between the two? George is on the inside. Oh, and there's a little touch. It's the front wing of Lando Norris's car and the front left of George Russell's car as well. And George Russell has retired from the Grand Prix by the looks of things. Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz wants to be left alone. Less radio, please. He's under pressure from Lewis Hamilton. He needs to concentrate, focus on keeping Lewis Hamilton behind, because if he can keep within 5 seconds of Sergio Perez, it's even more points available to Carlos Sainz here. Lewis Hamilton just looking at the back of Carlos Sainz. Is he going to have a go down towards turn 1? Carlos Sainz is going to have to do an incredible job to keep Lewis Hamilton behind. Oh, no, Lewis Hamilton makes a little slip just before turn 14. Which might just give it Carlos Sainz the opportunity to stay in front this time around. Does indeed. Lando Norris also in and amongst this battle as well. Albon holding on to 8th place. 4 points for Williams up for grabs and elongates their lead in the Constructors' Championship, puts them actual points ahead of Haas, whereas right now they're equal on 11. Come on, Gasly. 3 seconds the gap between Perez and Gasly. 2 laps left to go. Come on, come on, come on. Alonso, unfortunately, dropping a couple of seconds behind Verstappen now. Basically over and done with for Fernando. Tried his best down towards turn 1, but Max Verstappen just had a little bit too much off the restart. Sergio Perez actually closing the gap to Fernando Alonso. Although if he gets in front of him, it doesn't really matter too much. And Hamilton all over the back of Carlos Sainz once again. As long as he doesn't make that little error again through turn 13. No, looks much cleaner from Lewis Hamilton this time around. As Max Verstappen starts the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Come on then, Lewis. What have you got down towards turn 1? Gasly still in 4th place. Carlos Sainz is going to be right under pressure from Lewis Hamilton. He's going to have a go around the inside. Not quite this time. Again, Lewis Hamilton's got one more opportunity, you'd say, to try and make that stick. Sainz just holding on for his absolute life at this point at Ferrari. Charles Leclerc, of course, his teammate out of the Grand Prix, and a Ferrari are going to keep themselves involved in the Constructors' Championship. They need to take home some points, especially with Alonso coming home with a podium. And both of the Mercedes cars running in the points. Oh, no, sorry, George Russell's out of it now, isn't he? Oh, this is actually quite big. And Lewis Hamilton then, final lap has been started by Max Verstappen, but we're all watching Lewis Hamilton, who's running in 6th place, right underneath the rear wing of Carlos Sainz. Is he going to have the straight line speed to have a go down towards turn 1? No. Is there a little bit of touch in there? It was very close. Oh, he has another look at turn 3. No, not this time. And Lewis Hamilton's probably going to have to settle in just behind Carlos Sainz. A little bit frustrating for Lewis. Sainz is going to be holding on for dear life then. I guess there's still turn 11 where Lewis Hamilton might be able to make a little lunge, but just feels like Carlos Sainz's Ferrari's got a little bit too much in the straights for the Mercedes car. And here he is then, Max Verstappen, the home hero, coming around the final sector. Cheered on by the Dutch fans. It's going to be 9 in 9 for Max Verstappen as he comes around the final corner, takes the banking, takes the applause, and takes 9 wins in a row. 10 victories is turning into 11, and Red Bull 13 from 13. Max Verstappen 11 of those victories this season. And there it is then. Verstappen, Alonso, Gasly, Sergio Perez just about holds on to 4th place. But Pierre Gasly gets a podium for Alpine. And I don't think anybody had that in their predictions. Alpine looked like they were in a little bit of no man's land. And there is Pierre Gasly, a 3rd place finish. Ocon with another point for the Alpine team as well. So Verstappen, Alonso and Gasly are top 3. Sergio Perez in 4th. Carlos Sainz 5th. Lewis Hamilton 6th. Lando Norris is in 7th. Albon in 8th. Piastri in 9th. And Esteban Ocon rounds out the points in 10th place. Stroll, Hulkenberg, Lawson, Magnussen, Bottas, Tsunoda and Russell are finishers outside of the top 10. With Joe, Leclerc and Sargent not finishing the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen takes the applause. Absolutely sensational stuff. Where did Lando finish? Finished 7th in the end. 7th place finish from 2nd on the grid. Not the best afternoon for McLaren. They kind of threw it away with the strategy, if I'm honest. And unfortunate. Unfortunate indeed. But we'll leave it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for sticking around during the red flag as well. Had to wait patiently to see if we were going to get a little bit of a run out at the end of the Grand Prix. We did. We saw 5 racing laps at the end there. Not too much to talk about in those final 5 laps, but nice to see the cars finish under racing conditions. Thank you all so much. If you want to get involved, get your hot take on the community tab, link in the description. Head over to the community tab, get your hot take in for the Dutch Grand Prix for a video that I'm trying to put together in the next couple of days. Whilst you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you in a week's time for Monza.